Welcome to the Joy Meets Pain podcast. I'm your host, Dorcas. As a psychotherapist who has worked with children, couples, individuals, and families for decades, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people say, my family is the worst, or I'm too embarrassed to talk about my family, or no family is like mine. Well, guess what, listeners? All families have ishness, foolishness, happiness, shadiness, loneliness, forgiveness, hopefulness, goodness, and the list goes on. If you come from a family and are trying to navigate your family relationships, then welcome. Please keep in mind, I am not providing therapy or medical advice. And here's a heads up. Once in a while, I will curse. So if you're looking for a clean, no foul language kind of show, this is not it. Welcome, Joy Meets Pain audience. We are excited to bring you episode 12. It is my pleasure, as always, to have the beautiful Tuffy here with me. While we are in different places, we are here as enthusiastic as possible to have this conversation about a family secret, which is affairs, infidelity. All right, so Tuffy, welcome again. And how are you? How is life?
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here once again. Life is lifing, but we roll with the punches and yeah. And how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you for asking. Appreciate that. I've said it before, but yes, podcasting should be fun, relaxing. It becomes a research project on its own, right? So there's so many things to cover. And so it's always a matter of can we get it all done in 30 minutes or less? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, the last episode we touched on family secrets, and so today is a continuation of that conversation. We are focusing primarily on infidelity, secret affairs, impact on families, why they happen, and all of the good stuff. So yes, I mean, I guess we can begin by talking about how are we defining infidelity? What is an affair? Obviously, different beliefs, values, cultures will define it differently. But for you, Toffee, what comes to mind when you think about how you would describe an affair or infidelity?
I would describe it as stepping out of an exclusive relationship,
Mhm.
without the knowledge or consent of the other person. I'm aware these days you have open relationships, you have polyamory, etc. But I think in those cases there is a level of awareness and there is consent, and both parties,
Yes.
or however many there are aware. And I feel like when it comes to an affair or infidelity, it is a secret,
Yes.
and the other party is not aware of the other person. And yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. So definitely, we are not talking about polyamorous relationships, which, for those of you who might not be familiar, it's when partners choose to have an open relationship, right? So you have relationships with different people, and everyone is aware. We are also not talking about consensual non-monogamous relationships as well. So we are talking specifically about a secret behind a partner's back that they are not aware. So it can take many forms, right? It could be sexual, it could be emotional, it could be a combination. It could also be referred to as internet fidelity or cyber infidelity, which is, having a relationship of some kind with someone online. And I actually have come across some people who will define the use of pornography as a way of cheating, so to speak, stepping
Okay.
outside of the relationship. What are your thoughts about that? Obviously, it depends on the relationship, right?
Yeah.
porn is acceptable. It's growing in many relationships. It's part of their excitement. But I have come across some individuals who will say, I did not realize my partner was so dependent on porn, or,
Mm,
I feel like they're more into, the actors, actresses in these
mhm.
videos as well. So just curious to hear your thoughts before we move on.
So I think um because porn is known, according to research, is known to have a psychological impact and also an impact on the relationship, I would say it it could be a form of infidelity, but again, depending on whether the partner is aware, first of
Yes.
all, both people are aware and if they're okay with it. But then also, I feel like it's important to look at how it's impacting the relationship. So if it now takes the place of the partner, or it impacts how intimacy is between the two people, then I feel like it starts to be in sort of like a gray area. So if it's
Yeah.
used as a form of an enhancement within the relationship and
Mhm.
both people are aware,
Right.
okay, uh, live and let live, cool. But I think the moment it becomes sort of like an intrusive thing, or again, if it's a secret, then
Yeah.
we have a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And or if one is definitely heavily dependent upon it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so why on earth do people have affairs? Why on earth is this a thing? And it's definitely not ending. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about why do people have affairs?
Thrill of the chase. I think
Hmm.
people just I think it's always interesting to chase after something that
Hmm.
you can't have, or just
Hmm.
the adrenaline of it being a secret, and the feeling of an adventure,
Yeah.
or greener grass syndrome, thinking, oh, it could be better over there, or this person is more interesting. And honestly, also from personal experience, I think you always think the thing over there is better than the thing
Right,
because you don't know the person.
right,
I think it's difficult to love people up close because you get
right.
to see all their shit. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think for starters, I think it's just maybe that curiosity, the thrill of the chase, novelty,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
onto then more serious reasons would be maybe emotional neglect in the relationship or lack of intimacy and connection.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, there are many. There are many. So some can include boredom in the relationship, right? Someone looking for excitement,
Mm,
or, I could be insecure and maybe my partner isn't providing the reassurance I need. And so I can find it in a new relationship or situationship, right?
yeah.
Some of the reasons I think, that I've come across in my work have
Mm,
to do with compatibility. So at
okay.
times, one partner might say, well, I enjoy, working out and, going on hikes. And, the other one may not have any interest in any of those things. And so they may end up connecting with people who have those interests. Well, I go to the gym, 3, 4 times a week, and, I see Joe there all the time, and we chit chat, and, before you know it, we're developing this emotional connection.
Yeah.
So I think in other areas, sometimes it has to do with power. So when I think about, let's say, in the church or in a family,
Mm,
the the pastor, the preacher, the leader has power, and that power can be intimidating. So a church member who feels, oh, Pastor so and so is making advances at me, right? It these things happen, right? So that's another example. Some things that I've also seen, there's a lot of tit for tat that happens in some relationships. Well, you did this to me and you really hurt me, and so this is my way of paying you back, right? So the other partner may not know that this was done, or sometimes there is confession that happens as well. But one huge factor in infidelity, and in some, not all, but is the use of alcohol or drugs. People under the influence do a lot, and so sometimes you'll hear people saying, "Oh, I got weak in the moment, my judgment was impaired." So these are just a few reasons. Of course, there's so many more, and we're not covering all of them. But yes, I think these are some of the reasons why. And so let's talk then about what this looks like in families or from a cultural perspective, or even when it comes to gender. What have you come across? What are your thoughts, Taffy, about how these factors play into infidelity or affairs? So intergenerational patterns, culture, and gender.
Hmm. So when it comes to family, what comes to mind is, for example, in African culture or
Hmm.
we're Zimbabwean, so for example, in Zimbabwean culture,
Right.
uh, you grow up witnessing situations where affairs, especially when it's the man,
Hmm.
um, it's usually played off as, oh, it happens, and you stay strong, and it is what it is, and let's just move on, as opposed to when it's the woman or the wife in the relationship, all hell breaks loose.
Yes. Yes.
From what I've seen. So that I think that in terms of within a family unit, and also that speaks to the gender and
Hmm.
also to cultural situations. I
Yes.
don't know how that looks in other cultures, but I know in African culture, this is how it usually goes. If it's the man, there's more grace, and it's almost like, it's a normal
Right.
thing.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
let's move on. You
Yeah.
know,
You don't
there,
question it.
yeah, there are kids involved. So do you want to tear apart your home that you've, invested in, and the family, just because of an affair? It's, just,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's not discussed. I mean, you may hear, um, a mother will talk mothers because they're, in African culture again, home with the kids, right? So daddy waenda kumba kwaningi, or dad's gone to so and so's, and sometimes I think some of this information comes out when people are adults and they find out about half siblings, or you know
Hmm.
Amai Ningi, or mother so and so, right? Aunt so and so was actually having an affair with your dad. And so,
Hmm.
these are some of the secrets that come out later. But yes, you brought up an excellent point about gender, which I think this is a common theme in most cultures, and especially, I mean, from my experience and things that I have witnessed. Oftentimes, men cannot deal with a woman who steps out on them, right? Women are forgiving, tolerant for the most part. But when a man finds out that his partner, a woman, cheated, it really eats at their ego, you know?
Yeah.
And they become so preoccupied with that. And yes, it's different dynamics, I think, in terms of the responses to infidelity when we talk heterosexual couples.
Mhm.
Thoughts? Yes.
I also wanted to point out that I think, especially, I don't know how it was, years back, but I'm just thinking about when I was at school and sometimes hearing that, oh, um, so and so found out that they have a half sibling that goes to another school, for
Yes.
example. That would happen sometimes. And then also now as we get older, I've had conversations with friends where you go out somewhere, even when I lived back in Zim at home, you go out somewhere, a night out, and you find someone's dad just kind
Yes.
of hanging around and
Yes.
offering to buy you drinks, and you're like,
Yes.
"Ooh, okay, isn't that so
Yes.
so's dad?" And it almost becomes like a norm. You don't only see him that week, you see him the following week, and then
Mhm.
everyone just kind of knows, like, "Oh, this is so and so's dad," and yeah, he's around.
Yeah.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
But again, also as young adults, I mean, I'm 33 now, and sometimes, you speak to friends that are as especially the female friends that I have,
Hmm.
where you also start becoming aware sometimes of maybe what your parent is up to outside of the home.
Yes.
I've had friends that have seen their parents in
Yeah.
action somewhere,
Yes.
or
Yes. Yes. Yes.
with another person, and trying to navigate whether should I tell my mom, or I'm going
Mhm.
to confront, or they try to confront the parent.
Yeah.
But because of these dynamics, like in the African home, like the father is up here, you're the child,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
ever seem to create an impact.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that's also, yeah, that's also interesting, especially
Yeah.
again when it's a daughter trying to confront her father, like, hey, where were you last night? Why are you coming
Right.
home? It's Sunday, 10 a.m. and
Right.
they don't get a response, so I've been
Yeah.
things like that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, I think it becomes unfortunate when children are blamed for the infidelity. And I have seen cases where this has happened. A young child, maybe, 9, 10, discovers a parent is having an affair, and they tell the other parent. And then ultimately, that child is blamed for the relationship ending.
Mm,
And this is a burden a child carries with them because, they grow up believing, well, I ended my parents' relationship or I was blamed for it. You
yeah,
know, I think there are other cases where one parent may take a child to the cheating partner's house or place or wherever they congregate, and the child is put in a position of don't say anything, don't tell your parent this is where I took you. And so
hmm,
these secrets are now being passed on from, one family system or generation to the other. And
yeah,
you will find some of these patterns do repeat themselves, right? The child becomes an adult, and in their mind, they think, okay, well, the secret was kept, nobody was told, I can do the same. And sure
yeah.
enough, they end up, repeating the cycle as well. Um,
And
yeah,
also with kids, I feel like kids are very smart, and they're
yes,
very intuitive or in tune. And so I think sometimes, even without them specifically being put in the situation to take a side or to have to say anything, I think from what I hear, when it comes to, let's say, that the relationship does disintegrate or the divorce takes place,
yeah,
children, I think the mind of a child, they're not developed enough to be able to separate themselves from things. So when things
right.
happen, whether it's childhood trauma, or when something happens, the child is always going to automatically assume that it's their fault.
Yes, yes,
That goes across the board, whether it's an affair or an argument or a divorce. Kids naturally are inclined to think that when things happen, even if they're mistreated, that it's their fault because
yes,
they don't have the emotional capacity to figure it out in their brain that this is I'm here, you're there, this is
Right.
your stuff,
Right.
stuff. So I
Right.
think that's also a very unfortunate thing
Yes.
that even without them necessarily being deliberately put in the middle of it, they still are impacted by it.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. All right, so let's talk quickly about affairs and the digital age, right? So
Mm.
technology has made things extremely easy and convenient, right? And so there are many angles to tackle this conversation here. So one of them is just really, truly how easy it is to reconnect or connect with new people, old
Oh yeah.
people, right? Someone you never got over, someone who hurt you way back
High school
when.
sweetheart.
Right, right, right. All of this it's just at the tip of our fingers.
Yeah.
Um, and so these are the stories that you hear of, yes, Facebook has definitely created a monster when it comes to internet affairs or relationship starting or marriages ending. And social media for sure has contributed significantly. So, beyond Facebook, Instagram,
Oh
everything
yeah.
else, right? Following certain people and you know, yeah, but I mean, I want to touch on something different, but before I jump on into a different aspect of affairs in the digital age, is there something you want to add as far as access and ease and convenience and
Um, I think, like you said, it's because it's at the tip of our fingers. It spans across from social media, like your Facebooks, your Instagrams, and how easy it is to connect with old or new people, but also dating apps.
hmm
Um, a lot of them are free, at
hmm
least to a certain extent. So you can download, and within minutes, you're swiping and you're matching with people and you're already texting. Uh,
hmm
so I think, yeah, definitely easy access is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I think also technology has enabled people to become more secretive in some ways, right?
Yeah.
So you can use other apps to hide apps, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, I mean, something I hear often is, why did you delete the messages? If there was nothing happening there, then why was there a need to delete them, right? And the partner who does the investigating, will then take screenshots. I mean, they will record whatever conversations. I think some of the most outrageous affairs I've heard of are people who use the Ring camera, and you can see everything on the camera, but yet there are brave souls out there who
Wow.
bring, their cheating partner or side piece or side person into the home, so technology is helping to also catch when
Yeah.
infidelity is happening, right? Private investigators are hired to follow certain people. So it's a huge business. It's a huge business, and it's very time consuming. And that is the one thing I notice in my work is the amount of energy it takes for the one who's been cheated on to do the investigating and the researching just to find out if this is actually happening, right? Looking at credit cards and where were you on this day and how much you spent and, why does it have two meals and so on and so on.
Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing on one of the podcasts I listened to, it was someone coming in with an anonymous story. I think they react to stories that people send in, and this person was saying that they asked their boyfriend. He had gone out on a night out, and
hmm
then he came, I think, home pretty late, and then she was like, "Oh, can I see your bank statements on your
hmm
phone just to
hmm
see like how much money you spent?" And and then he was a bit funny about it, like, "Oh, no, like why?" And then of course he went to take a shower and she started,
hmm
snooping around, and then found out that he made a payment to OnlyFans. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with
Yes, yes, yes. Yes,
And
yes.
then when she asked him about it, he well denied. He was like,
Right,
I don't know what that is. I don't.
right.
And he called the bank and asked them to block the payment because he has no idea what it is and he doesn't know how
Mm-hmm.
it got there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I think, like you're saying, technology also helps to, well, with the investigation and people getting caught out. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Little
let's,
footprints. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk about, impact, right?
Mm,
Emotional impact, impact on the family. What then happens when a partner finds out that this has happened, right? So some of the feelings, one can experience, obviously, rage, you know, um, the one who's been cheated on can also feel a sense of shame. Am I not enough? How could this happen? The cheater will maybe possibly have some guilt depending on who it is, right?
mm,
Some of them also become angry for being caught. And so the anger will become a distraction from the act. But,
yeah.
well, I wasn't getting none at home or whatever, whatever, right? So, a broad range of emotions. And unfortunately, in some cases, the betrayal can actually have post-traumatic stress-like symptoms.
Okay.
There's hypervigilance. You're constantly checking, reviewing things, reading things. You're not sleeping well, you have nightmares, you're thinking about the act itself or the person or how could this happen. You start to, question, and this is going beyond PTSD, but just into other symptoms that come out of infidelity is, how long has this been going on? And, what else are you keeping behind my back, right? And impact on the family, so people respond differently. Some may end the relationship right away, others may want to stay on and work on it. But if there are children in the home, they feel the tension, they can feel the stress. Sometimes the cheating partner is kicked out, get out of here, I don't want to see you. And so there's just a lot of unfortunate consequences that come from infidelity. Are there any that you want to add? Maybe, anything that I may not have mentioned or anything you want to expand on?
I think just expanding on what you just said, that it has a huge impact on self-worth, and
Yeah,
it impacts mental health. And mental health is obviously a broad term, and this can go from self-worth to
yeah,
self-doubt, thinking, am I enough?
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and trust is eroded. And
of course.
think there's the grief that you think you are building something with this person.
Yeah.
You might have kids, you might have joint bank accounts,
Mm,
maybe are in debt together, paying a mortgage off together, and all of those things
right,
will and inevitably come into question. And and I think that can really send someone down a downward spiral,
right, right.
um, and the grief that comes with that. So
Yeah,
definitely, and of course, the impact on the children, like we spoke about earlier.
yeah.
Children can feel everything, they can sense everything without being told, and so
Mhm.
I can imagine that's not a safe home to be in.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk forgiveness then. In
Whew.
your view, do you think forgiveness can truly be achieved after betrayal, after infidelity?
I think honestly, I think it depends. It varies from person to person.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, And I think it then traces back to what that person has been through in their own life. Have they
Right.
experienced cheating or have they witnessed cheating when they were growing up? And I think people have different trigger points. So maybe for
Yes.
someone, uh, having someone lay hands on them, so domestic abuse might
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
be a non-negotiable for them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if a partner cheated, even if it did cause a rift, they would be less like, well, yeah, less likely to leave or more
Yeah.
willing to work on the thing or more forgiving. I think I've heard people that say, oh, if they cheat and we're married and we have kids, I would be more willing to work on it. But if this person lifted a finger at me, I'm out. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it really depends from person to person. And then
Yeah.
also based on personality and
Yeah.
what your personal triggers are. Are you someone that can hold a grudge to the grave? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
someone that is let's go of things. I don't want to say let's go of things easy because cheating or infidelity is a big thing, but
Yes.
to oversimplify for the sake of this conversation, I think
Yeah.
yeah, it depends on who you are as a
Yeah.
person. So I think it's an either or. I think I'm
Yeah.
in the middle. I think that's something that someone has to decide for
Yeah.
themselves. And
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
it,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also seen both ends of it, right? So there are some people who'll say, okay, it only happened once,
Mm,
I can forgive, right? Others will say, and there are others also where it's happened numerous times.
yeah,
They
yeah,
still stay and work on their relationship, right? But oftentimes, yes, when children are involved, it becomes messier because then there's a lot of splitting up and taking sides and who goes where and so on. There are some partners who do seem to forgive and they are able to move on, right? So it absolutely depends on numerous factors. I think one of the biggest factors is, does the guilty party show remorse or
yeah.
not? Because then if it feels like, oh well, um I won't do it again, but there's no action behind the words, then that
Mm,
that is a bit of a challenge as well, right?
yeah,
So yes, I think therapy is highly encouraged when this does happen because you want an environment to be able to talk through and process where everyone feels heard, you know,
hmm,
and a common behavior that I come across is the guilty party usually wants to move forward quickly. Wow, it
yeah,
happened 6 months ago. Let's move on. Now I'm a new person, and now I'm doing all the right things, and now I'm coming home on time, and now I'm checking in when expected, right? But you can't expect a breach of trust to be repaired in such a short time,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Trust is over time. Yeah.
Right, right. And so again, it depends on the people involved. Some, it may take them years to start to feel like they're in a place of forgiving and getting over it. And others, may not, but one of the things, if you are the perpetrator, then do expect that transparency is necessary to help with the healing and the repairing and the rebuilding of trust as well. So let's see here. So I guess if we talk about, maybe inviting the audience to share with us their reflections, right?
Hmm.
Um, what are some prompts maybe that we could throw out there in terms of thinking about family secrets when it comes to infidelity, you know, um, how they would define it, things they can think about.
Hmm. I think the first one would be just reflecting, and an important question would be what constitutes as an affair for
Mhm.
you as the
Mhm.
audience, and what does loyalty mean to you?
Mhm.
And the second question would be, have you ever been betrayed or been the betrayer. Um,
Yeah.
and we would love to hear your stories. Send them in the DMs, over email, voice
Right.
note.
Right,
And
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
we would love to hear your stories. And yeah, maybe we might feature it anonymously, of course, on
right.
one of the episodes.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
don't.
one thing I forgot to say when we were talking about the digital age, right?
Mm,
So websites like ancestry.com, 23andMe, unfortunately, which just filed for bankruptcy, but these provided people with a place to research, who are my siblings or parents or relatives, extended family members. And so, again, a lot of secrets came out from those websites. I didn't know my mom had an affair, or I've just discovered I'm not my father, whom I thought was my father, is not my father,
mhm.
right? So, I think the digital age has really enabled us to put our hands on this information a lot faster.
Yeah.
As we know in our African culture, it can take forever to hear some of these secrets because families aren't talking about them,
Yeah.
and as younger generations, it's also culturally not acceptable to ask
Mm,
parents and elders questions about their relationships or their affairs. It's, considered disrespectful, right? So I
yeah.
think for the audience listening, I would be curious to hear from a cultural perspective, what does it look like for them and how infidelity affairs have been managed in their culture, in their families, and for sure, if anyone has experienced it, how was it handled? What did they do? But always, I think it's good to seek guidance on how to proceed when this discovery is made, especially in a family, because you want to talk about the impact on everyone else. All right, so closing comments, thoughts. Anything you want to say about this topic?
What I was going to add was, I think, speaking to um how it impacts families as well. I think the what's passed on to the next generation. So again, intergenerational
Yeah,
sort of damage would be um, maybe in the position of a daughter or a woman. If you grow up in an environment where affairs and infidelity were tolerated, you might go into your relationship and subconsciously think it's okay. Or I've also heard of situations where someone is in a relationship, and then maybe something happens, or some sort of breach of trust in the sense of maybe infidelity or uh, an affair, and them confiding maybe in a parent or an
mm.
aunt, who then says to them, "Oh, it's normal.
Yes,
Just."
right. That's what happens.
And I think that's in the sense of like intergenerational, impact. I just think it's sad, because you would expect someone to say, no, this is not
Yeah,
normal,
yeah,
and don't want to continue this pattern. Uh, and so yeah, I think that's
yeah,
what they would add. That it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
stop there. It can
No,
fortunately have a ripple effect,
yeah,
either subconsciously or through the influence of older
yeah.
people within the family unit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think we didn't touch on fear, but that is also a reason why some people may stay,
Or
right?
tolerance.
Right. Fear,
Yeah.
tolerance, trauma,
Mm.
these are things that can keep people in these relationships. But yes, I mean, this is a topic that, could have 10 episodes as
Yep.
well.
Very
So
meaty.
many angles. So
Yeah.
we have to bring it to a close, but great chatting. And we will look forward to our next topic on family secrets.
Yeah, this was really good. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. I hope you found this episode informative and engaging. If you found it meaningful in some way and have comments to share, or you would like to share your family story, whether joyful or painful, please send an email to info@joymeetspain.com. Thank you for tuning in and for allowing me to spend this part of your day with you. Please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And of course, please spread the word. Till next time, stay well and stay present.